And that's part of the reason why I do what I do, is because of the pain fuels me to actually help people. And that makes me a coach, a trainer. But these people that I'm serving, that I'm working with, maybe they didn't have to take those detours.
People try to put us to down. Talking about my generation.
Hard is the new fun.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Who's going to carry the vote? My generation.
Welcome to the TLT Movement Podcast, a podcast for tomorrow's leaders today. We are at the very hotel that we just got done with TLT Conference 2023, and I am sat with one of our mentors, Steven.
Yes. Hi there. I'm Steven. Hi, Danny.
Hi, this is Steven. He is probably the mentor that's traveled the furthest in all of TLT history. He's from Montreal, Canada, and I just want to chat with you about how you thought TLT Conference 2023, how it went.
Yes. I thought it was really a learning experience, true learning experience for me. And the reason why is because it's been quite a while, almost 8 years, that I haven't been with young people. And what I mean by young people is the Gen Z generation. I've been working mostly with adults like millennials, but coming here, I didn't know what to expect, but I thought it was a really, really cool, really powerful experience and learning experience for me.
It's interesting to hear you say for you, because you're supposed to be the one kind of mentoring, but in return, you get the same info that they are. So
Yes.
it helps you out.
Yes, definitely. I came here with the attitude, yes, to give, but also as a learner. And a part of it is because I knew I was being immersed again among young people, and I really didn't know what to expect, just because I don't know how to communicate in a way that young people can actually receive it. And that was one of my goals coming here, is that if I were to impact young people, I needed to learn how they think and be among them, and just to learn the language and just be one of them.
Sure. So how old are you?
I'm 45.
Really? You don't look 45 at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So you don't usually work around young people. What do you do for work? Like, what inspired you to fly all the way down to South Florida and come serve and volunteer?
Yes. Basically, I met Andrea, the director, the organizer, about a year ago. Beginning of this year, at an event organized by Paul Martinelli, who is one of the speakers, the animators, and he had this event called Turning Point, and we met there and we connected really well. And she invited me right away to be one of the mentors.
Nice.
Yeah. And at first I told her, well, the young people are not really my audience at this point. I mean, I've been a youth. I worked with youth for over 10 years in the past, but then there was a season of my life where I kind of left that, and I didn't feel that was any longer my field. And when she invited me, I didn't give much thought about it, but a few months later, I felt I felt the need to come. And part of the reason why is because I feel that investing in young people today it's almost like a must.
Right.
With so much confusion out there, and so much going on, they just need people, mentors more than ever before.
Totally agree with you. So being here, immersing yourself around Gen Zers
Yes.
for 3 days, what was a takeaway that you had? What did you learn about us young adults?
Well, it's funny because I realized it surprised me that they actually like me. Because of this Gen Xer, late Gen Xer, and I like to be funny, and but I realized that they just want somebody to care. They want somebody to listen, somebody to care, somebody to believe in them. I'm the type of person that it takes me quite a bit of energy to be a clown, but sometimes I don't need to be a clown all the time.
Sure.
Maybe just by caring, by being there and listening, I realize that they actually appreciate that.
Well, that's a very good takeaway and true. I feel like compassion is definitely a quality that us young people appreciate.
Yes, and belief. I just feel sometimes they still they don't know what they got, but when I believe in them, when they become aware of their true power, sometimes that awakens them to go after what they want.
What would you tell yourself if you could look back in time and shake your 16-year-old self? What would you tell him?
I think I would tell my younger self to listen more to mentors, because as a young fella, I was very proud, arrogant, and didn't want to listen much. I thought I knew everything.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
That's a common theme amongst us youth.
And learning a lot of things out in a hard way. I wish I had listened more and reach out more, because things that you don't listen a lot of times, I had to learn in the hard way, and just hitting a lot of walls in order to just be humble by circumstances. And so if I were to go back, I would listen more.
You would urge yourself not so much to have to experience something to learn from it, but to be able to learn from it by somebody else's experience.
Exactly. That's exactly the very well put. Yeah.
So as we know, TLT Stand, which is what we called it this year, it's a 3-day event, but it's just a launching event to a year-long mentorship. So each month you're going to be contacting your group of guys and kind of just mentoring them with whatever they need as far as school or job, anything like that. What do you expect that process to look like? How do you think you're going to be able to pour into them through mentorship?
Well, the way I would approach this is that, first of all, I would really show care, make sure that they know that I'm for them, and that I want their best interest. But even in a practical way, I want to ask them questions about what they really want, just to help them really dig in and feel what is their passion and what they want out of life. And even if they're not sure yet, never thought about it, or not yet had the chance to process that, to ask themselves those questions so that they can have more of a direction and more, even the awareness and the drive to go after it.
When did you feel like at what age do you think you found your purpose or your passion?
This is, thank you for asking this question, because for me, the reason why this to me is such an important question to ask ourselves is because I found this out later in life in my 40s. And just because for the first 40, in my teens, even to my 30s, I still wasn't sure about my purpose of life, my passions, my natural strength. Everything was a huge confusion. And throughout the pain, throughout the process and trial and errors, and that is why I do what I do, which is basically coaching, helping people find clarity. And if I had known a lot of things back then, what I know now, I wouldn't have had to go through a lot of detours or trials that led me to errors, learning experiences that I went through. And that's what I want to be for them, is that I would like to compress the breakthroughs that I got and ask them those questions early on so that they can be thinking about it, processing it, and just find out what they want earlier in life, if possible.
What do you think is the benefit to finding out your purpose or your identity early on? Like, why do you feel like it's important that they learn that and don't take the time like you did?
Yeah, I think the advantage on the first of all is I find that it will help them navigate their career path, their life decisions. In my life, I hope job to job, industry to industry in my 30s, and a lot of times not knowing really what I wanted, and that made a lot of decisions based on the outer factors without really considering my design.
Outer factors meaning like money or cars or
Yes.
stuff like that.
Yeah, things like that, like money, company reputation, benefit package, which is
Sure.
not bad at all. But I just feel that even if you have those, but it's not in alignment with who you are, with your design, with your values, eventually you'll find yourself either bored, misaligned, even miserable.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, like even if you have it all on paper, you could still, because you're not operating in your God-given purpose, in your dream, in your, and you'll not be satisfied, even having everything that you think you want. I find that very, very intriguing. And I think that everybody is capable of, no matter what happens, being joyful and having peace. A big part of that, obviously, is spiritual, but I believe your purpose is spiritual too.
Mm-hmm.
So to find out what you want to do in your purpose, your career,
Yes.
is the channeling, is the physical manifestation of what your purpose is, hopefully, then you'll be able to live a life where you jump out of bed excited.
Yes.
And that is something that is so rare. And I feel like we were talking last night at dinner, and you were asking me like how long I've been doing all this video stuff, and I've been doing it since like the third grade, so about like 8 or 9. And you were so impressed like how I found my passion at such a young age. And the older I get, the more I realize I'm like, yeah, you know what? I it is a blessing that I found that so young, and it hasn't really changed. Like I still have the same excitement over it, you know, than I did back then. And it is nice to jump out of bed excited. It is nice to live feel like you're living purposefully and you're not drifting along. And I'm in it for the same reason that you are, because I feel like if everybody is able to sweep their doorstep, then the world will be clean. And so that's something that Ange quotes a lot from Mother Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
She says that with the symbol behind it being like, if everybody was accountable for their own selves and lived in their own purpose, then the world would be a better place just overall.
Totally.
And so I think this is a very honorable and cool thing that you're so passionate about doing. And usually, to my understanding, your coaching business, it's more for adults and business and stuff like that.
That's right. That's right. Just going back, I met Andrea in that event. And that event, most of the people are Gen Xers.
Sure.
In their 40s, even 50s. And my audience, the people that I work with, are millennials or Gen Xers. And so they are, professionals. A lot of them are more successful than I am.
Sure.
Honestly. And even talented. So I'm very used to that kind of crowd. And but coming to TLT was a new adventure and challenge as well, because I felt the need to actually invest in the next generation. That this generation cannot be ignored, is because they will be the leaders of the future in 5-10 years.
Right.
They will be leading corporations, being directors, the decision makers of organizations. And I just believe that those values, purpose, passion, values, is so important to impart it, especially with so much confusion today in society. So yeah. So that's.
I found it interesting to hear you say, that you coach people that are sometimes more successful than you. Yes. How do you quantify success?
That's a really good, thank you for asking that question. I guess the one-sided definition that I meant by success is people who are further in their career path. People who have gone further, maybe because they have built upon what they have in their lives without going around like I did. I have done a lot of detours. I have done hop job to job, industry to industry, and that's part of the reason why I do what I do, is because of the pain fuels me to actually help people, and that makes me a coach, a trainer, partly in order to avoid other people making the same mistakes. But these people that I'm serving, that I'm working with, they didn't have to take those detours, and their career has gone in level to level, always going up, or
Right.
building up. So that in that sense, and success in that sense, although it's not the total meaning of success,
Sure.
but that was what I meant. They're probably further along than I am in their careers.
Cool. So it sounds like to me that Paul Martinelli and coaches like him have helped you
Yes.
try to find a little bit more of what your purpose is.
Yes, actually, it's in my 40s. I've always tried little here, little there, and found out little pieces of me in knowing myself. But just getting involved with organizations such as John Maxwell and Paul Martinelli has enabled me to know more about the craft of coaching, personal development, and Paul Martinelli, especially in the business area. He's just very gifted in the business part. But before meeting John Maxwell and Paul Martinelli, I went through a few coaches already, programs that have helped me in part slowly discover my own design and my person, what I want, my purpose. And for me, it was kind of pieces coming together over time, over a long period of time, where now in my coaching package, I just compress it all in a few essential steps so that these people can actually experience the breakthrough that took me probably 10 years to experience.
Wow.
In a short amount of time. So yeah, that was the idea, is to make it shorter for people and more, shorter and save pain.
That's very cool. And I almost like to view this life coaching as the same way I would view someone who coaches a professional sports team. Just because they can't play as well as the players out there doesn't mean that they're not as qualified to call the best plays. And so you have gone through a decade worth of extensive research into how to develop your passion and purpose and figure out who you are and who are. And so I think that's super cool that your goal is to kind of compact that time into something short, but just as impactful and meaningful.
Yes. Just to give you an example, there's this Bright during the pandemic. He came. We met online. He had no idea what his next step was, and what happened is that he was a high school teacher, but he didn't know what to do after during the pandemic when he started it, and so we did a coaching session of 3 in 3 months, and what happened is that in what took me 4 years to discover, in 3 months he got all the breakthrough. And then by 6 months, he was actually speaking around his region to high schoolers.
That's cool.
By 8 months, he wrote his first book, and
What?
a year and a half, his second book. So
What?
he just went exponentially. I'm like, wow, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love hearing, especially pandemic stories like that, because there's so many times in history, one in recent-ish history would be the Great Depression in the 30s. We're kind of a little bit worldwide. Economics were not looking good. And for a lot of people, they adopted this mindset that still lingers today as far as hoarding or saving, penny pinching, all this stuff to not be as poor as you were back, in the day, in the long distant memory. But at the same exact time, that book, Think and Grow Rich, is written. The same time, created some of the richest men on the planet. And so I feel like it was repeated history during COVID, where a lot of people took COVID as a really great excuse to bow out, to go, hey, I lost my job, had to move back in with my parents, you know, my life stinks, it's so hard, the government stimulus package just wasn't enough, I'm still trying to get my job back. And then there's people like this guy that went, hey, look, like teaching in person at least is kind of out. What can I do? And within a year and a half, takes the proper steps to get help in order to find out, in order to write 2 books.
Yeah.
And that's so cool to me.
That's impressive. Yeah,
That's so cool.
I was so happy for him. I was
Yes.
so happy. I was very impressed. And
And you don't feel a sense of envy.
no, not at all. I was very happy. I said, man, I think you outgrew me. You can go to the next mentor. You can go to the next coach. You know.
That's cool. And I love that so much, because some people that if coaching wasn't their passion, they'd be in it for the finances or the power or whatever that may be. And if somebody were to get, you know, more successful than you, you might be like, hey, what the heck? You might be a little envious, or you'd be like, see how good you did? You need me. But it's cool. It's so cool to see you in your passion, that you're genuinely happy for him and you want to send him on up to the next level.
Exactly. Yes. And that's how I feel with the young people too. I just feel like I get the opportunity, the privilege to touch people that will be way further than me, way more talented, whose calling will be, you know, more impactful. And I just get to be the part of that piece that helps them get there. So that's always been my thought. I had mentors like that, and that's the mentality I adopt.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, hey, I kind of want to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your childhood.
Okay.
Because we went out to eat last night, and you told me, you know, that you were born in Taiwan.
Yes.
And then where did you move after that?
I was born in Taiwan. At the age of 6, our family, we moved to Argentina. And then we lived in Buenos Aires, Argentina for 10 years. And then at the age of 16, half of my family, we moved to Canada, Montreal. I have 4 sisters. So 3 of my sisters, they were engaged. One of them was married. So they stayed in Argentina, settled there. But my dad, my mom, my youngest sister, who is 5 years older than me, and myself, we moved to Canada, to Montreal. Yeah.
How do you think living in such a diverse range of different countries, from being on an island right off of China, to then moving to South America, to then moving all the way up to the cold, you know, North America, how do you think that developed you as a person?
You know, I'll be honest. I have gained the good things that I've gained is perspective, a unique perspective in ways that is unique to me. But however, I think there's a price is that I grew up not really knowing where I belong, and that was a struggle. Is that when I was a kid moving to Argentina, I remember my process of getting used to life in Argentina, learning the language. It wasn't as hard because I was very young. But then moving from Argentina to Canada, that was a different thing. And so I have lived in different communities where throughout my life, I've always asked myself where I belong, you know, not quite being able to fully identify myself with the group or the ethnicity that I was living among. And that was a struggle. And by now, I just kind of stopped asking that question. I just accept the fact that, well, you know, I can be with the people that I can be.
Yeah.
And there's always common ground. And I'm just going to live off that. And I'm just going to learn from whatever places I go to and just live among the people and learn their lifestyle, you know, learn from them and just be among them the best way I can and just to adapt. So that gave me some kind of flexibility in a way that I've learned to be flexible. But also I've learned, you know, different perspective among different people. Yeah.
So by moving so much, you've learned different perspectives, different countries, different people, but also a side effect of it is you kind of don't know where you belong.
Yeah.
And that's still following you even
today. Yes.
today.
Even today, I say, if it wasn't because of my faith, my relationship with God, I think I would still be asking questions, about my identity. And it's interesting that you mentioned about identity. That kind of enforce the identity that I am a child of God. And out of that, that's what I am, and that is enough.
Wow. So you're not Taiwanese, you're not Argentinian, you're not a Canadian, you're a child of God.
First and foremost, yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When did you come to your faith? Because I know that Taiwan's not necessarily a very Christian birthplace.
No, even now. But my family was Buddhist. We worship idols. And it was when we moved to Argentina at the age of 6 that my parents got invited by a brother at church, and to attend church. And then my dad started to force me to go to Sunday school, and because he didn't want me to sleep in during the Sundays.
Sure.
And then at the age of 13, I went to a camp, and that's where I received Christ as my Lord and Savior.
That's very cool. How is that when you go back to Taiwan? Because I assume that you still have family there.
Yeah.
Being that Christianity is a pretty foreign concept to them, how do they take that?
Our family in Taiwan, they see the blessing of God in our family, and they are open to recognize the hand of a divine hand on our family, because all my sisters, their marriages, their kids are all healthy, walking with the Lord, where most of my family in Taiwan are broken families, and that's kind of passed on generationally. And so they kind of see the hand of God in our family, and from time to time they're open to actually know, and even be approached or be open to Christianity in ways that, because they see the blessing, the things that they ask the idols, that they worship idols in order to get what they want to get, they see it in us, in our family.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting and cool. What does idol worship look like? Because that's a total foreign concept to me. I don't even know what that is.
Taiwan, they have a few main idols that that they worship, and they have their own names besides Buddha. And so their main idols, some are females, some are males, but there a lot of focuses on prosperity, protection, fertility, financial blessings and things like that.
So is it they're actually like worshiping the statue, or the statue, like the cross up on the wall, would be a symbol for this deity?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They have a look. They have a look to those statues, and they have a name as well, and they have their own name. But beside that, it's also a custom to actually worship ancestors, where you not just pay them respect, but you actually pray to them. You actually
Like they are a god?
yes, ask them for protection, ask them for blessings, fertility, and things like that.
Very intriguing.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. All right. That's cool. We talked a little bit about that last night, and it's so foreign to me that it's intriguing to me. So I'm just curious. It has nothing to do with a leadership podcast, but it's cool nonetheless. Do you want to get into some geopolitical conversations about Taiwan or no?
I'm in a generation where I don't like what's happening with Taiwan and China. Does not arouse animosity against not the people, but probably the party.
The CCP.
Yeah, it's just because there's been always tension between Taiwan and China, but mostly it's because of the Communist Party that wants to take over, that considers Taiwan as part of China.
So to my understanding, Taiwan was a part of China for a long time, and then in the 50s, they had a liberation where they became independent.
What happened is that Taiwan was never legally part of China.
Oh.
Yeah. What happened is that there was a war of parties, two different parties, the Communist Party and the Kuomintang Party. And after the war, after Japan left China after the World War II, and the Communist Party took over, and the Kuomintang, which was used to be the main party in China, escaped to Taiwan.
Oh.
And it was the mission of Taiwan, the Kuomintang Party, to go back to China to liberate China from the Communist Party.
Oh.
That never happened. And so Taiwan always had their self-governing law, their government, and their constitution ever since their republic, as opposed to the Communist Party China, which is their own.
Wow, that's very interesting. I did not know that. I for some reason thought that Taiwan, it was like a different race of people or something. But to my understanding of what you just told me is it's more of an ideology, that it was a whole party that separated and went to Taiwan.
Yeah, like the Taiwanese people, they were already indigenous people in Taiwan, but the huge population of the Chinese Kuomintang moved to Taiwan, and so you have different backgrounds in among the Taiwanese people, but yet since the beginning they always had their own constitution, their own political party, self-governing political structure. And so yeah.
So you think that they should that we should help them if China were to want to take them?
Well, I the thing is that I don't believe that Taiwan is part of China to begin with.
Right.
But the thing is that it doesn't mean that they cannot come to a collaboration. But when China says that Taiwan is part of China, that's to me that's it never was. It never was. Yeah.
That's very good to hear from you, because I get little snippets online of what's going on, and they say it's a one China, and that's kind of their thing. Taiwan really desires to be independent. Obviously, we are in a relation with them where if they were to get attacked, it's kind of our duty to step in because they're small country. We already don't get that many views on this podcast, but we're definitely shadow banned now because YouTube does not like this conversation. I'm pretty sure they're pro China, to be honest. I think.
Okay.
But hey, I'm down to get bold, baby. Let's.
No, it's funny because United States is allied with Taiwan, and it's one of the strongest ally of United States. Taiwan being in a strategic place in the East Asian country, and so yeah.
In manufacturing, right? Like they produce a lot of the technological chips and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But it's very true that whenever you see China in a place, in an organization, let's say NATO or a world organization, then Taiwan has to go, because there's always a pressure, because China will never consider Taiwan as a nation itself. So in the presence of whenever he steps into organization, then Taiwan will mostly have to be step out. So that's health organization, World Health Organization,
right?
And things like that.
So do you give this a good bit of thought, being that you're from Taiwan, or no?
At this point, I know my previous generation, they will, even Gen Xers, but I'm a late Gen Xer, and just because in my background, I have had so many issues that I had to deal with in my personal life, so I kind of put that aside.
I see.
Yeah.
Because I'd be curious if you give this a good amount of thought, how you think there can be a win-win. Like, how do you think that they can? I mean, that's obviously like we're going deep into some crazy geopolitical, solution that I'm not expecting you to have at all. But I am interested if you've ever thought about that, like how they both can win.
I think a win-win would be a collaboration among both these two countries, which is probably not the vision of the Communist Party at this point.
Right.
And that's the difficult part, because the Communist Party has the vision of taking things that they believe that it belongs to them.
Right.
And so, because it's authoritarian, so it's very hard to unify Taiwan, which is democracy, and still respect the freedoms that they have, and their self-determining political structure, while belonging to this greater, unified with this China, which is a communist authoritarian political structure. Yeah.
I see. So what two countries do you think have a good example of a collaboration? What's an example of that in the real world?
Well, in China, with China, I believe it's hard, because we see what's happened with Hong Kong,
Right.
and and then you start wondering, like, it's whether that's really possible to have that kind of idealistic scenario. Hong Kong being part of the English colony for such a long time, but now being returned to China. And, a few years ago, you see all the protests and what was going on, the suppression that happened. So, it's I just don't see it happening.
Dang. This podcast definitely is already controversial. China definitely doesn't like that we're talking about this. YouTube definitely doesn't like that we're talking about this. So I'm just going to come out and say something that has been on my heart for quite a long time.
Yeah.
That I have been really, really praying and pressing in and trying to strategize how the heck I personally, with the community of people that I have, help these people. But I want to educate our audience about the Uyghur Muslims. I don't know if you know about what's going on in Western China, but they have modern day concentration camps that are very real, that they're oppressing a race of people that call themselves the Uyghurs. It's a sector of Muslim people, and China literally, you can look all of this up. It's real, and the NBA actually banned one of their players for mentioning something about it because China has such a heavy investment in the NBA. But they have a modern day concentration camp, and if you care about the Jewish people, for instance, and the Holocaust that happened with World War II, and you think to yourself, oh, I would have been somebody that helped them. I would have been somebody that protected them or stood up for them. I believe that you have an opportunity right now to do that with people that are in concentration camps in slavery right now, that are being castrated so that they cannot reproduce.
Wow.
They're being targeted by the CCTV feeds to have face detection software to choose the features that they know this certain race has, and then they go pick them up. There are articles and videos online that you can watch. It gets banned quite often. I would check Twitter. I would look it up if this interests you at all. If you're hearing about this for the first time, please go do your own research. But that, hopefully, this does not go null and void, that somebody hears this that didn't know about this and wants to do something. I don't know what to do. I'm not about to go get a camera and go make a documentary out in the middle of communist China.
Right.
I don't know how to help these people, but it is sad, and it weighs heavily on my heart. I don't know if you've ever
I never heard of this. I never heard of this.
Yeah, most people that I talk to haven't. I found about this years ago because it's been happening for a while. And the oppression that they're under is pretty extreme. The concentration camps, they're pretty malicious, where they're not necessarily executing them, but they are castrating them so that they cannot reproduce. I guess they learned from the uproar of the Holocaust. Being like, well, we can't necessarily kill them, but we can work them to death. And we can make sure that they don't repopulate. It's sick. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So with that being said, so Paul Martinelli, he's a great guy, right? Great speaker.
He is
Am I
great.
right?
I love Paul Martinelli. I love John Maxwell. These are my mentors. Yes.
No, leadership is good, but what are we leading? You can't do it all. Hopefully we can make an impact I love what Andrea Hazim says all the time. She says, change your world, change the world. Just because you don't have 1 million followers on Instagram, just because this podcast doesn't get 1 million views an episode, doesn't mean that we don't have an impact on the people directly around us. Yeah. And so I appreciate you greatly for your character to volunteer and pay your way to come all the way here so that you can help out 4 teenage guys. And I know that may not seem...
5.
Oh, 5?
Yeah, I got
Even
5.
better.
I got the privilege of 5.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But yeah, it's like that may not seem like you're changing the world. It may not seem like you're rescuing the Uyghurs, but you are making a big difference with a ripple effect that you'll never be able to see with your own eyes. That will go generations. This education that you are blessing these young men with will stick with them forever. And I know this because guys in your group personally told me. So
Thank you.
thank you so much. I've appreciated our conversation. It got a little all over the place, but hopefully it was educational. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please comment below, share it with a friend. If you don't know what to do about the Uyghurs, maybe share this episode and bring some awareness because it's real. Steven, you have anything to plug? Any social media? Anything like that?
Yes. My website is Maximize You. So maximize-u.com for those who are interested in knowing more about me. And there's one last thing I want to say, that the reason why Taiwan has such a good relationship, is allied with Israel, is because both they suffer threat from bigger countries around them. They sometimes they're under the pressure of extinction or takeover from the countries around them. And so they understand each other. That's why they've been such great allies and friends for such a long time.
That's super cool. Thank you, Steven. We'll link the site down below. Go check them out. Find something that you care about. Find a passion. Find a cause that you care about and go after it.
Amen to that. Thank you, Daddy.
Nation.